Okay, welcome to the seventh Junior Golf Recruit Podcast, the show that covers junior and college golf. I'm Peter Festi, and today we're discussing the U.S. National Development Program with Chris Zambri. Chris was our first podcast guest a year ago. I've known Chris for 10 years. He's the original contributor to the design of JGR, providing advice in college recruiting on the college recruiting process, what college coaches are looking for, how they pick players, and what junior players and parents need in the recruiting process. Now, launched by the USGA in early 2023, Chris was named as the first head coach of the USGA's National Development Program. We're looking forward to hearing about his first full year and some exciting new changes in 2025. For a more in-depth look at the National Development Program, please watch our first podcast from a year ago, where we went into much more depth on it. We're going to cover some different topics this morning. Prior to coaching the National Development Program, Chris was a very successful coach at USC for 14 seasons and at Pepperdine for 3.5 seasons. So welcome back, Chris. How are you?
I'm great, Peter. Thanks for having me back.
One question before we go to the U.S. National Program, if I can ask you about a piece that we put into JGR that you advised on. So players can search for college programs based on the scoring average of the team's top 3 players. Why is it so important that players target schools that are in that scoring range?
A couple reasons. The first reason that comes to mind is that a lot of times players will or recruits they'll cherry pick a little bit and maybe look down the roster list a little bit more than the top 3 to kind of make an argument that this is a place that they should be able to play. So they might look at the 5-man, the 6-man, the 7-man. But the one thing, no coach is ever really recruiting anyone that they have pegged to be their 7th man. They're looking for people who can be in the lineup. And so it's much better to, if you want to compare yourself and see if you fit in, to do it against the top 3 players on the team and the way they play. And also maybe if you can somehow have a background on what their junior golf career was like and see if your junior golf career kind of measures up to what they were doing, because that's really what the coach is looking for. And then the other big reason, which ties into the first one, is the goal in the process is to find somewhere to go play college golf, get an education and have an opportunity to do something that's unbelievably fun and rewarding. You make lifelong friends, and if you want to end up somewhere, you kind of need to choose the places you go after, because you have to choose correctly, right? You have to pursue things that are attainable, and if you set your sights too high, you might not end up getting anywhere, right? With finding a school to go to. And so I just think it's really important that, they're all pretty much one big answer, which is look at the top 3. That's what the coach is looking for. And if you spend your time going after programs that fit that model, you're going to have much more success in ending up playing college golf.
Much more success with the coaches emailing you back or contacting
right.
you back.
You're going to make
when
some
the time is appropriate.
Yeah, you're going to make some headway, because that's just realistic in my mind. And I mean, the part that's important is that, you look at the top 3. Those are the and if they have an unbelievably great player and a superstar, maybe you look at the 2nd and the 3rd, or the 3rd and the 4th, but don't go too deep down that list, because coaches aren't looking for a 6 or 7 man or person when they making recruiting decisions.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into your world now. So just give us an overview of what the U.S. National Development Program is all about.
Yeah. Um, so the United States has never had a program that whose goal it was to look after our best players in the country and try to bring them and help bring them along through the junior golf process, into college golf, and then into professional golf. We have things in place that are have always been helpful in that regard, whether it be junior golf, college golf, high school golf. But we've never had an organization that whose goal was to help make American golfers better. Right? There's a lot of things that are in place in our country, but not really a unified organization in which that's their goal. And there's so many countries that do this, right? And so in those countries, and to name a few, Sweden, Japan, you name it, just about every one of them, Mexico, so many countries have, England, programs like this that have a really big effect on helping their players get to the next level, right? To get to professional golf and be successful. Another one I didn't mention, I mean, there's so many, but Canada is a really good example of a country that's kind of our size that is doing a really good job of helping their best talent get to professional golf. So that's what we're trying to do. We were, the person who runs the USGA or is the CEO is a guy named Mike Wan. Mike Wan was the LPGA Tour commissioner. One of his partners there, and really one of his right-hand people there, was a woman named Heather Daly Donofrio. And Heather's a former tour player, a winner on the LPGA Tour. But Mike ended up going from commissioner of the LPGA Tour to the CEO of the USGA. And I think some of what we're doing, or at least partly, was born out of his looking around on the LPGA Tour, probably, and seeing that American golf seemed to be not quite as dominant as it once was. And I know that there were some folks here at the USGA, namely John Bodenhammer, who had this idea. And I think the fact that John had an idea of creating a national program, and I think that since Mike Wan clearly saw a need for it, and he came over to the USGA, and then he brought Heather over to run this program. And so we're put in place to help both girls and boys, men and women. But I can't help but think some of it might not have been born out of what they were seeing week to week on the LPGA Tour, which was that not a lot of Americans were at the top of the leaderboard at the end of the week. And that was going on for a number of years. And so, we're a big country. We have the highest, we should have the most golfers for sure on both sides, being that we have the most facilities. We're one of the most populous countries, and we're certainly, I believe, the most golf populous country. And so we just felt like, one thing I liken it to is you think about a Scotty Scheffler or a Tiger Woods, because on the men's side, we have a lot of players who are up there in the top 100 on the world golf rankings. But you look at, someone would say, well, you're doing a good job on that side. You are the best country on the men's side. And I would say, well, Tiger was the best most of the time for his whole career, and if not all the time. And Scotty Scheffler is the best now, but they still work on their game, all the time. They practice, mm-hmm. They want to get better. And so I see it as the same way. Like we might be in a really strong position on the men's side, but why not try to do something that makes it even better? So that's what we're doing.
This just came to my mind. I didn't write this one down, but when we're loading tournament scores every week from junior tournaments, the women's or the girls divisions tend to have less less in the field than the boys divisions. And I don't know if that is and this is pretty consistent across most of the tours. Maybe except for AJGA, maybe where they're a little bit more equal, but
less players or less American players?
less players.
Right, just less players.
Just less players. And I don't know, I haven't talked to any tours about this, but I'm wondering, is that because there's not as much demand or from the girl side, or is it just it's some other?
I would guess that no doubt there's more male junior golfers than there are female junior golfers. And that might have something to do with how things are going, right? Like there's less. This is a probably not quite something you would use the word Darwinian, but it maybe is a little Darwinian, that the level of competition is a little stronger on the boys side because there's more players, and therefore we might be stronger on the boys side. I mean, that definitely could have something to do with it. There's a lot of programs in place right now to help increase the level of participation on the women's side. LPGA has done a lot of good work there. And so, even though we have less, I don't think that's less than on the boys' side. I don't think it's at all an excuse for why we're not occupying more spots in the top 100. And so that's kind of part of what we're doing here. We're trying to increase that number from where it is now, which is about 15 to 20, and hopefully get it up there closer to where the men's side is, which is about 50 plus in the top 100.
Too, when I look at even like Division I, it's between men's and women's programs, it's fairly comparable. The men have a few more teams than the women do in D1, but it's not the same proportion as it is to the junior tour field list of boys and girls. So
no, that's a good point.
Anyway. All right, let's get to one of the headlines from the last week. Announced a couple of weeks ago, but Blades Brown, which was on your U.S. national team, made his debut as a professional at the American Express in Palm Springs. I think some of us were surprised that he turned pro so early. Do you have any insight that went into his decision?
I do, actually, and I don't think I'm saying anything that's private. I think that Blades and the folks behind him really made a lot of their decisions to turn pro early based on the fact that it is looking like that the tour is becoming a tougher place to get out on. And as the years are going forward, that getting to the tour is going to be harder, not easier. And that might be the greatest thing ever for professional golf. But I think in their minds, they saw that, that the number of spots available from the normal ways of getting out there were starting to lessen in terms of spots available through Q School, spots available through the Korn Ferry Tour. I don't think them going down to 100 exempt is necessarily an argument for it shrinking. That's just making competition, it's just forcing the competition to raise its level. But I do think the other reasons were part of the reasoning that went into that decision. And so I'm excited to see how he does. I thought his first week was a really interesting week. For whatever reason, got off to a sluggish start in his first round, was 3 over early, which he probably had some nerves. He's 17 years old and he's a professional golfer playing on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
But he did a great job of fighting back that day. And then he went out and went crazy the second day.
Yeah.
At one point making, I believe, 8 birdies in 9 holes.
Yep.
Which was pretty awesome. And then unfortunately just had a kind of a stinky back 9 to finish his third round and miss the cut, but I'm sure he learned a lot. And Blades is an amazing kid, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes. He's got a really strong game, really good ball striker, really confident, but in a really just super positive is a better way to say it. Like, every once in a while you come across someone who just, if there's something negative to say, he doesn't want to go there, at all. And it's kind of cool to be around folks like that, because he's a really upbeat kid, super confident, comes from a super athletic background. His mom played in the WNBA, and I'm looking forward to watching him. Yeah.
So I didn't think we'd get to this question quite this fast, but last year when we talked about this, you talked about kids that would be on the national team would be junior players, eventually college players, eventually into their first year or two as professional. And last year you started out with very young players to start, junior players to get the team going. But now we've leaped over, no college players yet, now a professional player. Will he still be part of the program?
So officially we haven't started our young professional group, but Blades was a really awesome member of the team last year. In a lot of ways, he's a leader, but he also took advantage of what we had to offer. And I ended up getting really close with Blades and his dad, and he actually really likes the way that I like to see people work on their game and the skills testing. He really took to that. He likes the competitive element. He likes the fact that it's scored. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to help Blades succeed. And if he's not, we haven't officially got that part of the program going, but I will undoubtedly do whatever I can to help Blades if he needs my help and he wants my help. And although it brings us to another point, which is we have, as of, we'll make an announcement this week, but we have started the Elite Amateur program. We have named 6 women and 3 men to that program. And that announcement will go out later this week. And so we have moved forward with the second part of what we were doing, which was, like you said, starting a national junior, going to a elite amateur, and then a young professionals group. And so we're excited to get going with that group. We understand that we're kind of late to the party with some of these kids, right? We're not late to the party, but it's just they're pretty far along in their life. They didn't come through our junior program because it didn't exist when they were juniors. And so we're going to tread lightly and figure out how we can somehow help them in any way possible. And the one thing we're going to do for sure is be really, really careful about what we say or do, right? Because golf is, it's not easy. It's not linear. It's not, there's not all tips are good. And so we're going to make sure that if we stick our nose into anything that we're fairly convinced that we can help. And we're going to plan on doing it in a real kind of peripheral way, probably not doing a lot of especially early on this year, passing along our info straight to the player. We'll probably try to pass it along to college coaches or parents, just so we make sure that we start slowly and that we allow them to kind of help filter the information. We have a lot of work to do to kind of build our worth, right? And so we're going to take it slowly with those players because most of them we barely know at this point. And so, and we haven't established ourselves yet as, I mean, we're doing it. We're making some headway, but we have a lot of work to do to establish the fact that we think we can be helpful. And so with that, we're just going to be really careful about how we interject ourselves into their golf life.
So let's talk about some other players from your team. First up, Miles Russell, 2027 grad year, T3 at the Jones Cup a week ago. Winner of the South Beach International, which was just stacked with college players.
Yeah, huge monster field.
I think there was five or six or seven junior players in that, but the rest were just kind of who's who of college. Same with the Jones Cup. That was a great field this year. And then winner of the Rolex Tournament Champions last November. What do you know about Miles?
Oh gosh, he's incredible. He's a really, really great short gamer. And a lot of this is just from talking to other people who know his game really well. Phenomenal chipper and pitcher, short gamer. He's got a decent amount of length for someone who's not that big yet. Really athletic and strong. Looks to be a really good competitor. He gets in position and tends to shine when he's in position to win. He got on a nice roll at the end of the year. I don't think his year was as great as he wanted it to be, in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
I did speak with his dad, and it sounds like they had maybe a little bit of an equipment issue and not quite driving it as well as he could, and just didn't have the right combo shaft and head, it sounds like. But it took a little while to figure that out, which is pretty normal. It's hard to know when you don't hit a shot well. Was that me or was that? And I mean, that's the age old question that everyone tries to answer. And but ended up finishing with a flurry. He won the elite. Is it called the Elite Junior Championship? The one that they played down in Florida. He won that. Then he went and won Rolex. Then he went and won South Beach. And then he had tied for the lead with a round to go at the Jones. And so he's a phenomenal talent. Had a chance to play in some pro events this year or last year in 24 and did pretty well. He made a cut in a Corn Ferry event. He played okay and missed a cut in another one, and then he played a tour event, Detroit, and I think he missed the cut, but he's a phenomenal talent. He's going to do huge things. It'll be interesting to see how this year goes for him. He's going to stay pretty busy. I have a feeling he's not going to play quite as many junior events and probably try to play more amateur events. That would be my guess. And so he's someone to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah. All right. Next up, I'm going to go back and forth between the men and women. Asterisk Talley, runner-up the U.S. Women's Amateur, and
runner-up at the junior,
and fourth at the junior.
Yeah, made it to the low am at the U.S. Women's Open, playing like in the third to last group on Saturday. Played in the Curtis Cup, defeated the number one amateur in the world in single stroke play to lead on Sunday, at a time when the match was in the balance. She's amazing. As we speak, she'll be teeing off in just a bit at the Annika with the lead. Just a huge talent. Hits the ball really well. I will say it's unique. She's a no glover, which is 1 out of 20 at probably, or even 1 out of 50. But she doesn't wear a glove. She uses jumbo grips. She grew up learning golf from the same person who taught Bryson, Mike Shy, and just got a great swing, really controls the ball, gets it up in the air, has some length. She seems to be a phenomenal putter, which is pretty cool. The first time I really got to see her play last year was at the ANWA, and one of the things that I've always been, or not always, since about 2016, I've been kind of super interested in putting speed and how it relates to putting better. And I watched her at the ANWA in the first couple rounds, and I was really impressed with the way she putted. I thought it was amazing to see a junior golfer actually leaving a putt short every once in a while, which is sometimes pretty rare, especially on fast greens. But she just seemed to have a real feel and understanding about the importance of not ripping her putts too hard. And then she ended up playing a really nice round at Augusta that Saturday, the final round of the tournament. I think she shot 4 under to jump up into the top 10 in that event as a high school freshman.
Yeah.
But we had some last year. We formed a relationship with a stat portal, or a company that does stats. We had some players who didn't seem to be really interested in doing stats, which we had 18 players, and usually out of 18 juniors, 17 of them won't be interested in doing stats, maybe 18. But I had decided that I wouldn't make it mandatory in the first year. And so you'll find me saying seems to be a good putter or seems to have a this or that, because we didn't keep data, and which was fine. It was fine the first year. It ain't fine this year. And so now the stats will be mandatory if you want to be part of our, we were in a position last year where, we were just hoping that, that phrase, if you build it, they will come. We were hoping that we would start this program and actually have great players be in it. And you would think that we would, but we were new. Luckily, we identified 18 players we wanted to ask. All 18 said yes, which was great. But it was still important that, but it was so important to have the best players, what we thought were the best players, that we might not have been in a position to be really adamant about things we needed from them, right? And we think we're in a better spot this year. And with that, we felt like it was important that if they were to play a tournament round, that we needed the data, right? So we could start really understanding their game better. I mean, it's really hard to coach people who live 2,000 miles away and you're not getting their round data, right? Yeah. And so this year it's mandatory. It's going to take a lot of harping, I think, which is okay. I tried to set the expectation that I didn't want to have to call and text and send messages to get the stats in following the tournaments. I have a feeling I'll do some of that early in the year, but that's okay. I'm used to it. That's what we did in college all the time. Hopefully that need to do that will diminish as the year goes on. But I just need the stats, and so do my coaches or my coach. It just makes all the difference in the world when, as a college coach, you knew everything about every part of every kid's game on your roster. And one of the things that was probably eating me up a bit last year was not being able to answer a lot of those questions about our players. And I do know that it can be dangerous to just kind of take someone's word or other people's word for it as to what somebody does well and what they don't do well. It doesn't always work out that way. sometimes they have it backwards, as to what the real strength is. And so I can't wait to be able to pour through this data. I mean, I love doing it anyways. I just think it's so fun to try and understand how a round or a tournament went by looking at the data. And so I can't wait for that this year, to have these rounds start pouring in. Like I think we have about 6 girls playing at the Annika. And so I can't wait to see how it went down.
Yeah, if these kids don't know that you're a numbers person yet, they're sure.
I just find that it definitely goes a long way towards explaining what happened. I mean, I was thinking of it just yesterday. Like, it's interesting how we always are trying to come up with explanations as to what's going on with somebody's game, but generally, if you go to strokes gained and you look at on the tour, especially because they adjust as the day goes, which makes it more informative than just going off a standard number. But it's really hard to find somebody whose strokes gain adds up to a certain level that doesn't also finish at that level on the FedEx Cup points list, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, we're really creative about trying to tell a story that describes or sums up the performance and all the things we might use to describe it. But in the end, it generally comes down to the numbers, right? The numbers always add up to the score. Did you hit it well enough? Did you iron it well enough? How'd you short game it, and how'd you putt it? And I mean, there's more things that go into it than that as far as decision making. Decision making is a monster part of this game, and it affects almost every single shot you play, which I think can't be stated enough, that you got to make amazing decisions throughout every round you play. But in the end, if you add up the strokes gained, it adds up to the score. There's not some mystery part of the round that doesn't find itself in those numbers. And so to me, that is a really big part of coaching, is understanding their strengths and weaknesses. And I don't know how to do that without the data. So I'm looking forward to that this year more than just about anything.
Going back to last month when I saw you in Vegas, I felt like I was a kid in the candy store sitting there with you and Mark Brody on Tuesday night.
Yeah, how cool is that?
Just watching you two talk about all this that was fun for me.
I know, it was fun for me too. I'm pinch myself when I get to talk to that guy. He's the man.
I know.
He reached out to me, and this is a humble brag. He did reach out to me and say, he texted me and said, "Chris, can you give me a call?" And I was, give me a call when you get a chance. And I don't know how fast information moves along those wires, but he got a response in from the moment I saw it to the moment I returned was about 3 seconds. Like, can you talk now? I was ready. And we had a really cool talk, and he's, it's not often that you actually find someone who has the answers to your questions. And so it was great to have an opportunity to talk with Mark on the phone, and then to see him at the coaches convention and get to hang out with him a little bit was pretty cool.
Yeah. And as a side note too, I went to one of his sessions with the men's coaches, talking about the rankings and trying to explain the ranking system to the coaches, which was amusing to watch. He kept, every coach was just asking, how do I get my team ranked higher? And he kept just saying, play better than the other teams, no matter who's in the field. And so one of the coaches asked, well, does that just mean that we need to fire it, at all the pins? And he goes, and I was waiting for his answer, and he's like, no, if you fire at the pins, you're going to lose spots in the ranking, because that's not how golf works.
Did he really? That's great.
Anyway, all right, let's go to another player. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Tyler Mawhinney,
Yeah. Yeah.
2026. He's committed to Vanderbilt. Um, I'm going to go in a different order here. T9 at the Rolex last November. T9 at the US Amateur last August. And then a win at the Canadian Amateur. Can you tell us who was caddying for him that week?
Yeah. Well, luckily it was me. That was might have been the highlight of my year. Probably was. It was so fun to get in, to be part, to be inside the ropes. Not that there was many ropes at the Canadian Am, but it was a cool event. There was people out there watching. I mean, it had a real tournament feel. There was 260 plus players in it, and a lot of them adults. I mean, Tyler was probably one of the younger players in the field, and it was really just an awesome week. We ended up having two players go play in the event. There was two coaches there. We were allowed to caddy. So I ended up on Tyler's bag, and Coach Joe ended up on Michael Reeby's bag, and it was just amazing. I got to. I made a trip early in the year to go see everybody and at their home, to just get familiar with them and their game a little bit and do some testing. And I didn't know a lot about Tyler's game. I didn't know a lot about anybody's game, but I showed up and I showed up at his course near the Jacksonville area, and we went out to the back of the range at his course, and the range was really sandy and just looked like, I mean, I feel like I would have chunked every ball. I would have been teeing it up an inch high with a 9-iron just to not catch the sand. But anyways, we did a line test, which is a test just to determine how well somebody gets the ball on line. I think you could almost sum it up with how well somebody hits the ball, but it doesn't encompass everything. You can get away with not having the correct yardage, but it's really about getting it on line with various clubs. And he just put up a monster score. Like, it was unbelievable. And I could not believe how well this kid hit a golf ball. And so I knew going into the event that he was a really good ball striker and that he had a really good sense of control. I didn't realize early on that he was as long as he is. He probably had the most speed on our team in terms of ball speed. He's a really good athlete, can do all the things that they measure now. He can jump and, big old broad jump. And I'm pretty sure he has a pretty high vertical leap too, which are, I guess, good indicators of the ability to hit the ball hard. But anyways, it was just a great week. I got to spend so much time with him, 6 rounds in a row, 2 practice rounds, 4 real rounds. We got to do a lot of just great, talking through things, deciding on targets, deciding on clubs off tees on par 4s and 5s, like all the stuff that we want them to get better at. We got to do all week long. And he just played amazingly well. We were, I think we were leading or tied. I don't remember, but we start the final round, birdie, eagle, triple. And so at that point it seemed like we were leading most of the week, and then all of a sudden we were down. And he just did an awesome job of staying with what he was doing. And it was just so fun. And I was so happy for him. I think it was a real breakout win for him. And then sure enough, the next week, so by virtue of that, he got into the AM. He wasn't in the AM the following week, but he won the Canadian AM. So he got in the US AM. And I mean, he came within a whisper of getting to the Elite 8, and who knows how far he would have gone beyond that. A really great player from Notre Dame ended up birdieing the last 2 holes to beat him 1 up, I think. And so that was great. He by winning in the Canadian Am, he got a spot in the the RBC Canadian Open this year, and he asked me to caddy for him. So that'll be super fun. I was super honored that he wanted to hang out with me some more, and so we're going to do that in early June.
And it seemed like when I looked back at his record, he had some success before the Canadian, but nothing too spectacular. And then it just
well, he wasn't necessarily having a huge year, but he did win the Rolex to end 2023, which was a really big win. And then was just playing okay, it seemed like, for him. And the better the course is, the tougher the course, probably the better it is for Tyler with the way he hits the ball. And certainly, the USAM setup, as difficult as those setups are, I think that was right up his alley, to be playing Hazeltine setup in with a tough setup. So anyways, I'm really excited to see how he does this year. I'm excited to get to go to the Canadian Open with him. And he's a great kid. He's super bright, very cerebral, can talk decade, which I like. We can get into stuff. And his dad is an actuary. So
there you go.
Talk about a data guy. Now that's a real data guy. His dad's a real bright guy too, and has a lot of really interesting things to say, and has some like really well thought out ideas and opinions about junior golf and amateur golf. And so it was a great experience with Tyler and his family last year.
All right, good. Last player we're going to talk about, Gianna Clemente, 2026 AJGA Player of the Year for 2024, T5 at the Augusta National Women's Amateur, T11 at the Junior Invitational at the Sage, T33 at the US Women's Amateur.
Yeah, great player. I think I have a feel for her game. Like I said, without having a lot of data, I'm just not sure yet. I know what I see. It seems like she hits the ball really straight off the tee and a really good iron player. It's funny. I went and visited her, and I tested her putting, and it looked pretty good. And then at our last training camp, we decided to do a lot of testing, a lot of this testing stuff that I like to do. And we had 17 of our 18 players there, and we have a putting test that we do that I shouldn't say that we do, that I did with my teams in college. But we decided to do it with the players. It's called a 10 putt test. It's just really, you pick a dead straight 4-footer. We actually did it indoors, so it was about the most dead straight putt you could ever have on a dead flat platform at the PGA Frisco facility. And it's 10 putts from 4 feet, and the goal is to make the putt dead center, right? Which there's no possible strategy that says you wouldn't want to make it dead center. So I'm not making any assumptions that was the goal of every shot, to make it dead center. So we were grading it, right? You get it's 10 putts. Each putt gets graded on where it enters the hole, and if it misses, you get 0 points. So 3 for dead center, 2 for off center, 1 if it catches an edge and goes in, and then 0 if it misses. And then the one thing we do is we double the points on the first 3 putts out of the 10, because they seem to be the most indicative of what's going on with someone's stroke. So you learn, I found over the years of doing it with my team, that you learn more on the first 3 about really what's going on, because sometimes it shows itself and then it kind of disappears as the test goes on, because they figure out how to, they kind of make an adjustment, it seems. So anyways, the total number of points, we did 3 of those, including 1 from 8 feet, and she dominated that test. So the one thing that I didn't realize that I think is probably safe to say is that she putts really well, and that wasn't something I necessarily knew until the end of the year. She's you know, and I don't know when this podcast is airing. When is this podcast airing?
Tomorrow.
Oh, it is tomorrow. So I won't say anything else about what's going to happen with our announcements. But Gianna, I do think that Gianna looks like she's going to probably play less junior golf than she has over the last however many years she's been. I mean, she's competed at a pretty high level in junior golf for what seems like about 6 years now, or at least 5. And so I think she's going to focus a little more on high level amateur golf. Hopefully she'll get some starts on the LPGA tour. But really good player, really tough competitor. What I love about Gianna is that she really, really, really wants to win. And I think that's really important to have that in you, because it fuels you in all ways when you're not at a tournament, as far as how hard you'll work and how much you want it. And so I'm looking forward to seeing her game this year too, and getting to know it better, right? Like I said, she played an event already this year and put her stats in. And I'm already starting to learn more about her game than I knew last year. So I look forward to it. She's really talented and a really good competitor. So can't wait to see how she does.
Well, we'll look for an announcement. I don't want to get into where that may go, but I'm just going to say she's a highly ranked 2026 that's uncommitted. So
yeah,
we can figure out where that goes. Adding more players to the team. You said you're going to add elite amateurs. Will you add any more junior players?
We did. We last year we had 18. This year we'll have 22. So not everyone from last year will be back. I'll give you an example of one who's not back. Chloe Kovaleski was on the team as a junior last year. Chloe has now enrolled at Wake Forest. And so that's an example of someone who's not going to be back on our junior team because she's not a junior anymore. She's entering college. One thing we decided to do with our elite amateur team was there was a thought that we would just roll juniors off of our junior team and then right on to the elite am team. However, the one thing we figured out is that in terms of WAGR ranking, not all of these juniors will be as high as many players in college. And some of that'll be just because there's way more opportunity to help your WAGR at a college level because the tournaments are stronger and they play, a lot of them. They'll play 12 a year or so, 10 a year. But we thought it would be smart to, if a junior came off our team was really highly ranked in WAGR already, or top 100, top 50, that we would roll them immediately over to the elite am team. But if they weren't quite there, we thought it would be best to give them like a transition year where we still support them in every way, but not necessarily name them to the elite am team at that point. And so we just felt like it would make more sense, if you had a player ranked 300, let's say 310th as a junior, which is a pretty darn good WAGR ranking for a junior golfer. But if you then turned around and they entered college and there was 40 players with a better ranking than that or more, that maybe it didn't make sense to just automatically name them to that team. And so we're going to wait a year. We're going to keep supporting them as if they're on the team. But we're going to wait to name them to the team until they show that they're an elite amateur.
Yeah. You had a first training camp in May last year at Atlanta Athletic Club. What did you expect the players to get out of that camp, or what was the kind of goal?
Yeah, we ended up we did 2 last year. We did Atlanta Athletic, and we did Frisco. The goal for us, for them and for us, what I wanted them to get out of it, I guess their goals are kind of, they go together. I wanted to be able to explain certain things that I thought were important for them to know, like kind of big concepts that they could use, in some cases on every hole they played. For instance, I wanted to go through a lesson on how to pick targets hitting in the greens. And when, the age old question, when do you go at the hole? When do you play away? And how far do you play away? Right. And what are all the things that go into those decisions? And those are the kind of questions that not all pros subscribe, not everyone subscribes to the methodology that I taught. I don't think on tour. Some people do go at a lot of pins, but it seems like there's been a major shift from going at all the holes with the concept of dispersion and an expected scoring average and all the stuff that's out there now that may be a better guide to how to play golf best. There's this notion that golf is all about making more birdies, but it definitely seems to have shifted a bit to this notion of making less bogeys, and the fact that making birdies might not be as much of a priority as avoiding bogeys. And that's really not how juniors think at all. And so I gave a talk on that, and it may have fallen on some deaf ears. It can be a really big shift in mindset. And so I know that I got through to some of them, and I know for sure that I didn't get through to all of them. One of the girls told a funny story on, like, they were playing at Atlanta Athletic Club. It was mixed teams, and they were playing front nine. They played best ball, or what's called four ball, and then on the back nine they played foursomes. And the advice I gave them is, hey, you guys, I can't tell you for sure how to play the best strategy in four ball or best ball, right? Like, maybe the strategy calls for going at more pins. I said, but definitely in alternate shot, you would want to use good strategy hitting into the greens, picking targets that give you a little more room from the edge of the green. And so one of the girls on our team gets to the 10th hole, and they were playing well. And one of the guys on our team was with her, and he basically proclaimed that he's going at every pin. He doesn't care. And so they had this really nasty pin on the 10th hole, and they go straight over the pin, long of the green, totally dead. And they hem and haw on how to play it. They were thinking about maybe just trying to putt it because they were so afraid of how to play the shot. And the girl ends up chipping it in the hole. And so all lessons that could have been learned were lost at that moment. But yeah, that's going to be a never-ending battle, trying to teach them. It becomes a much easier sell when you play top level golf courses, when missing a green, and that is top level course, and they happened to really get lucky with that one, because that's the exact kind of course I'm talking about, which is generally the better the course. If you short sighted, you're pretty much dead usually. Greens are firm.
Was that the 10th on Highlands?
It was the 10th on. It's like a up and down. It goes down to the green. I think there's water left. I don't know which course it was.
Maybe that was Riverside then.
Yeah. I don't think it was the same course they played the US Open on. Okay. But I'm not sure. Or the PGA. But the more they get on those kinds of courses, the more they play in the USAM, and that's when you can really make some progress on picking good targets. So that was one thing we did. Another thing we did was the plan was to do a lot of testing. We got a little foiled, off course testing of skills, getting it online, knowing the yardages, putting simulated rounds, trying to understand how well they speed the ball on the greens. We were a bit thwarted with the weather that week in Atlanta. We ended up getting a lot more done in Dallas because we used an indoor facility there, just in case the weather was bad. It turned out it was a windy day in Dallas, but in Atlanta we caught rain, and so we had a backup plan for the rain. But it turned out the data wasn't quite as good, and so that was a big thing I wanted to do, is get more data, and it was a little difficult because of the weather. But I think the biggest thing that happened at these camps, and we saw it in some survey information we got back from the kids at the end of the year, is that one of the biggest things that the kids got out of the year with us was just that they got to make friends, and they really enjoy being around each other. I think they benefit in a lot of ways from being around each other. Certainly, socially, and the growth that, for a lot of them, these players that they're playing against are really in the crosshairs when it comes to, they want to beat them more than anything else, at least heading into last year. And I think they ended up becoming much closer and really learned some good lessons in relationship building and the importance of making friends. And they're very, very serious about what they want to do with their lives with golf, and to the point where not all of them are even in a regular school, right? And so these opportunities to mix with other kids of their age, when you're not at a tournament, I think those opportunities were really helpful. And it seemed like the times we got together were their favorite parts about being in this program. And it wasn't necessarily because they were getting, learning about golf, which is part of my hope, right? I think that's what I want them to be able to do. But or I'd love for them to say, but I think they really just like getting to know each other better and making friends, which was cool. That's a great byproduct of getting together. Not to mention they got to be around, and it's the one thing that's so great about college golf, is especially if your team is strong, you learn so much about where your game is and what could be better by looking around. And it might not even be a person who's better at you at golf, but they might have some shots around the greens you've never seen, or, there's just a lot of great things that come out of getting great players together.
Yeah, and often at home they don't. They're the best player at their club, they don't get to. There are very few situations where they get to be around other great players.
Yeah, right. Very few, and so, and there's a lot of good that comes out of that. Those comparisons, it's a way to really push. That's what I found. That's why I like the testing so much, is that it was a way to push people along in areas that they didn't necessarily realize they needed help with, to be able to do a random yardage test and get a score and be like, I felt pretty good, and then find out that it wasn't elite at all, is a real shot in the arm to start working on something that could get better. It's just hard, especially with the testing. The tests are, they're fairly unique, and the kids don't do a lot of them. And so, everything they use to compare their games is scores in rounds and finishes in tournaments. And since golf is played on a different playing field every single time, it's really hard to take that score and know for sure that it means you're great, you're good, you're decent, or you need to get better. It can be hard, right? Because not all courses are the same. And if everyone played just one course and it was exactly the same, it would be so much easier to understand strengths and weaknesses, because you could literally use the score for sure as the ultimate. It would tell you what everything adds up to every day. But not only do we have a different playing field, we have different conditions, and different green speeds. And there's so much variance that I found that the off-course testing can be really valuable because it isolates things. And so I think it's a good way to practice. And we did it at our second camp quite a bit, to the point where the kids wanted to kill me, I think. But that's okay, because I needed the data and I needed to understand their games better. And I did. I'll give you one great example. Other than the one we talked about with Gianna and her putting stroke, that was something I definitely learned. But the other thing I learned was there's a kid on our team named Tyler Watts, really good young player. Tyler's going to go to Tennessee to play golf, and he's one of the top ranked players on our team. Well, it turns out that Tyler is an amazing ball striker, gets the ball online like crazy. And I didn't know that until I did go and test him at his house. But there was some wind that day. That wasn't ideal for the testing. He didn't make it to the first training camp because there was an invitational that he went to instead. And so we tested him at, late in the year. And, all these, when people play really well, they do stuff well, but sometimes you don't know what. And sure enough, it was like, oh my gosh, this kid is a savant at getting the ball online. And it turns out that that's a really important skill. And so it was great to be able to answer the question, why does Tyler Watts play so well? Well, I think he seems to be a good putter, but I know for sure now that he's a good ball striker. After seeing his test scores, he dominated. So that was cool.
What do you have plans this in 2025 to do more camps like this?
We're going to do, we have one scheduled in late February. We're going to do it out in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then we'll probably have another one. And then hopefully I'll be able to do what I did last year, was get around to see everybody too, or even have people come to Pinehurst, because that's how I get to know their games. That's how I have any chance of really making a difference in them becoming. I mean, there's other ways. There's things we did. I'll give you an example. Last year we did a lot of. I keep shifting because the sun keeps moving. So last year we did. I mean, it's a challenge to try to help people who live 35-hour drive from where you are, or a 5-hour flight. But one thing we found that we could really push was teaching them how to break down a golf course before a tournament, when to hit driver, when to drop back, and on what line. And so we figured this out, early in the summer. Gosh, that this is a real opportunity to do something that doesn't require us to be in the same zip code. And so we did a lot of that this year with the hope that will start seeping into their view on golf. I don't think everyone took us up on those opportunities, but we consistently sent them course breakdowns for the bigger tournaments they were going to play in, and trying to get them to think more like a professional when it comes to, when to hit driver, when to drop back. Those are things that they don't really have they don't have the reasoning experience yet. I don't want to say skills, but it's just experience, right? They haven't done it, and they don't know what goes into why would you drop back, and why wouldn't the middle of the fairway be the line? It's not always the line in the middle of the fairway. There might be water down the right, so all of a sudden the line might shift to, crazily enough, it might shift to 4 yards inside the left edge, which that's unheard of for a young person. Why would you ever aim just 4 yards inside? Well, you would if the right side was water and the left side was not water. And so we really wanted to start creeping into their the way that they approach tournament golf, the way they prepare. And I thought we made some headway there for sure.
Good. Next up, last year you launched junior state teams in Southern California, Colorado, Georgia, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Ohio, Tennessee. 2025, you're adding
18.
more states to that.
Yep.
Northern California, Delaware, Idaho, South Carolina, Minnesota, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. How did that, I know that kind of got started middle of last year, but how did the state team concept go last year?
It's gone great. I mean, in the end, you know, the architect of what we're doing is my boss, Heather Daly Donofrio. And I'm sure, Heather's ideas combined with other folks in the program's ideas, but they really have a nice blueprint of, and sometimes you don't see it until you see it, right? And like, to me, it really dawned on me when I started hearing about the numbers that we would have in our state team programs, how important they're going to be to what we're trying to do, right? Because we're going to have our max number looks like in the elite program will be around 75. At one time it was a little higher, but we adjusted it to 75. And the state program is going to have over 800 when all is said and done. And so, that's going to be a huge reason why what we're doing makes a difference. The states have a lot of autonomy on how they're going to run their program, but we're also going to be involved. And some of the things that I would love to see, or our coaching staff would love to see, we're going to be able to bring to fruition through the states. We are not going to lay out their agenda by any means. That's going to be up to the coaches and the people who run those. But we are going to be able to have an influence on things that I think are important: how to practice, what to do in practice that leads to better golf, and so I think I can see that with the help of the folks who help run these state programs, combined with some of our guidance, not a lot, but just some, I can see how the state program is going to be super valuable in reaching our goals, which is to create better American golfers. It certainly widens the pipeline in a way that we would not be able to do by ourselves, and so we're just really fortunate that the states believe in the idea, and that they were super eager to want to do it. We've had, although we're through this year, we'll end up with 15 total. If we were capable of getting it going at the level that there seems to be demand, that number would be a lot higher, because there's a lot of states saying, we want to be part of this. When can we be part of this? And we just decided to roll it out just a little bit. We definitely need to roll it out in a certain way that allows us to manage it the way that we want to, and to also, work out the bugs in a smaller group. It would be really difficult to bring on 30 to 40 states all at once. And so, but I'm super excited about it, because it's a way to, we're going to have some programming for them that includes monthly calls where players can get on, and we ended up doing a lot of this kind of work with our grant program last year. We had 73 grant participants in the program. So last year was 73 grants and 18 elite players. And with the grant group, we were allowed to do a lot of programming, monthly calls, covering, similar topics that I talked about earlier: how to pick targets in the greens, what is strokes gained putting, the importance of speed, the importance of understanding how far your clubs carry. I thought we made a lot of good. We just enhanced our relationship with that group better, and I think we contributed to them becoming better players, and that's our job. And our grant group will grow to a little over 100 players this year. And so this year we'll end up with, 30 or so elite players, including the lead AMs, about 100 grant recipients. And then I think on the team side, over 100 team players, state team players. And so we're growing, and we're learning, we're getting better. We'll see what's happening in 4 years from now, 5 years from now. This program will have, maybe somewhere over 1,000 athletes. And so
is it fair to say that in whatever time frame, 2 to 5 years, 2 to 10 years, whatever, that the kids that go into your elite program would probably have already been on the state team?
I think it's really safe to say, yeah. I think that's the idea, but it's certainly not. I don't think it'll be a mandatory progression. I don't think it has to be that way, but I think it'll end up being that way because
it could have slipped through the cracks. And
yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ways to think about who should be on the elite team. Should it be the best players in the country, or should it be the best players in each class, right? And so we're still thinking about that, and we did a little bit of that this year. That was different than what we did the first year. The first year we said we just want to get the best players who aren't seniors, and then this year it was a little different. We wanted the best players, but we also wanted to make sure that we covered more of the classes and spread it out just a little bit. So if you look at the, what the rankings might say, we didn't go just off who seemed to be, the best players. We went off who seemed to be the best players, and then also who seemed to be the best in their class at a younger age. So there's a chance that a person could pop out at age 14 and play golf at a level that warrants being on the elite team immediately, without playing on a state team. But we'll see that as it goes. Those players, they come along, but not quite as much as well. It's not often that someone pops out as a 14-year-old or pops up as a 14-year-old and is one of the 15 best juniors in the country. So they'll probably go through the state route. Yeah.
All right, good. Anything we didn't cover that you want to?
No, that was great.
We'll put a slide up in this video. Viewers, if you want to go learn more about it, go to usga.org/national program. If you want to get in touch, email at usndp@usga.org. I think that's it. Chris, thanks for your time. Wish you the best for another successful year.
Thanks, Peter.
Back, as you know. If you haven't viewed our podcast from 2024, we had 6 of them. I invite you to go back to our YouTube channel or to juniorgolfrecruit.com. You'll find all 6 episodes there. And as a reminder, going forward, our next podcast guest will be Bruce Hepler, head coach at Georgia Tech, coming up in February. Look forward to that one.
That's a good get, Peter. I like it.
I know. That's one I've been hoping for a long time. So
yeah, he's the star, superstar.
All right, Chris, thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me, bud.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, talk soon.
All right, bye.